Hi guys, and welcome back to Stacking Wisdom Podcast. My name is Artem. This is my co-host, my brother Alex. And today we're joined with Andrew. Andrew works in a very interesting niche. He'll tell us more about that today. I just wanted to also mention that this podcast is brought to you by EFG Inc., social media marketers for today's world. Andrew, thank you for coming today. It's a pleasure to meet with you face to face finally. It's really interesting how we source out a lot of guests that come onto our show, because we reach out to them through social media. We never actually speak face to face, so it's kind of an interesting process that we go through to pre-qualify a lot of people. But it was interesting to see that that one little connection that we had on a previous podcast with Danny, how that sort of created a a little spark, and you reached out to us actually, which was really cool, because we've had people reach out to us before, but it turned out into this podcast. So tell us more about yourself, how you started in your business, maybe a little bit of background about your education, and sort of what led you into this industry.
Sure. So I run a brand called Monte Coe.
Mm-hmm.
It's a luxury luggage and accessories brand based here in Toronto.
Mm-hmm.
And we source the highest quality raw materials.
Nice.
And design and manufacture here locally in Toronto.
Amazing.
So
do you create a lot of jobs by doing that as well? Was that like your initial intention to kind of stimulate the economy a little bit in Canada too, or?
Long term, the goal is definitely to do that.
Mm-hmm.
I think about all the time how it would be nice to own our own production and give back to the community that way.
Sure.
At that kind of scale.
Mm-hmm.
But right now, we work with local manufacturers. They're family-run businesses.
Nice.
These are like second-generation Italians.
Nice.
And like I said, now third-generation Italians. And I think for us, it's really important to give back to those communities. In terms of, are we creating a ton of jobs? No, but we're definitely supporting our local communities by growing our brand here domestically, and I think that's super important. It's important to me and our partners and our team, and something that definitely gives me purpose on a day-to-day.
That's awesome, man. That's kind of really resonates with what we're trying to do as well, because we're trying to put Canada on the map too, but not just through anything that's happening through news or through business, but more so just putting actual content out there, about things that are happening within Canada, because I think we're always overshadowed by the States so much and a lot of the things that are happening. And I think that there's so much going on in Toronto and other big metropolitan cities in Canada, like Vancouver, right, or Montreal or stuff like that. So I think that it's important to kind of recognize a lot of people that spend the time and work hard to kind of develop brands that are still resonate that Canadian identity, but also kind of the fact that you guys are Canadian too is really cool, because it's just I think the social media itself has kind of really changed the landscape of things, and it allows people to kind of recognize a lot more smaller brands that are growing because of the social media, or they have the opportunity to kind of resonate with a lot of Canadians too, maybe because they want to buy Canadian products, right? So
yeah, I think the really cool thing about the direction that the world is going today, we're not our economies aren't necessarily localized anymore, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
of course,
where people maybe had to come to Canada to get certain products, that's kind of out the window,
mm-hmm.
For good or for bad. But now you can live in Europe or live in Dubai or live wherever,
mm-hmm.
and you can buy Monte Coe, or you can buy X, Y, or Z brand that is based in Canada.
Mm-hmm.
And for that, I think the internet's extremely powerful, and it gives it gives brands, it gives entrepreneurs, it gives podcasters, it really gives whoever this immense opportunity at exposure and growth,
right.
and kind of creating relevance in markets that 20, 30, 40 years ago you would have no business even being involved in. So
well, I think with your business, even if you were to launch it even 20, 30 years ago, I mean, it'd be a lot harder to scale, right? Without the tools like, that are provided through online, right? And like, whether it be like e-commerce stores, like, because I think you guys run e-commerce, right? So
we run e-commerce, and we do sell wholesale and sell into retail, absolutely. But I do agree with you. I mean, when you look at the way the fashion industry is kind of set up right now, you're talking about, the same major players who have been there for a very long time. and very seldom
So true, yeah.
would you find brands really pop up and take off. It was, you were really at the mercy of the buyers in the retail space, and having those relationships, which were obviously very difficult to get. Now I think the landscape has changed a lot. I think it has equalized the playing field for, you know, people that are just as smart or just as talented that maybe don't have those connections. And I think you know, I think we're in an interesting age where who knows what the hell is going to happen with, you know, with e-commerce and retail. Like, you know, everyone talks about this retail apocalypse, and like, it's definitely changing. Retail is definitely
I think the
changing.
biggest bubble we probably have is in North America, because I think in Europe it's not as maybe, probably not maybe the best word, but you know, say materialistic, right? Because it's like people, they just go out and just want to purchase volume, whereas sometimes it's about purchasing quality, as in like maybe like something that resonates with your products, right? When you purchase you know, a quality product that will last you for, you know, a good amount of time, but you can actually use it and enjoy it as well, because I think that's one of your motives, right? Is with you guys, with your luxury goods that you guys sell, right? So
yeah, I mean, we're definitely you know, we're definitely proud of the products we make, and proud of the fact that those are built to last. We are not a fast fashion business by any means. Like, our products are built with the best raw materials. We source Italian leather, Italian wools. You know, we have quality craftsmanship, and the point of that is that we want our customers to invest in our products and feel comfortable with the money that they're spending, knowing that they're going to last a lifetime. And I think I think one of the big problems with today's fashion industry is, like, we're not even talking about like a spring and a summer season or a spring and a fall season, We're talking about a 52-week season where people think that they need to buy, wear, and get rid of. And, you know, it's toxic for our environment. I think it's actually toxic for people's kind of social, I guess, interactions and the social pressures that they feel, because they feel like they need to keep up all the time with a certain look or the way that celebrity looks. We're kind of opposite. Like, you know, I like to think we design really cool products, but we do that with the intention that, you know, you're going to use it for a long time, and it's a product that you can stick by. And I also do have to agree with you that, you know, there is a mass buy kind of mentality in North America, but when you go to Europe, it's
present also. I agree to some extent. Yeah,
it's present, but it's, you know, I don't think Europe's as brand centric. I think they're a little bit more individualistic with their appearance, and they buy things based on their own tastes. I mean, I think everyone at some, you know, in some degree is influenced by people or the opinions of people, and that can impact buying decisions. But I definitely think it's definitely at a higher scale in North America, and something that we try to preach with our brand about, you know, buying long-term valued products that, you know, you're not going to throw away, and yeah.
It definitely reminds me of like the days of like my grandfather, when he used to have like a nice like leather case, and he would, you know, own that and carry it for, you know, 5-6 years, and he would, you know, put in really good use into it, and he'd have like the scuff marks and everything else, and it just kind of, it's almost like, you know, the things that were in the past are coming back in the trend in a way, and it's almost like people are sort of going back to recognizing, you know, the fact that sometimes it's good to invest into something that's going to last you for a while, but you can also enjoy it as, you know, enjoy the actual item too. So
we actually, it's funny that you say that. We actually just did a campaign with Infinity Canada.
I saw that actually on your Instagram.
Yeah.
I was looking through your profile,
and it was exactly.
Did they give you a car each or what?
Yeah, not yet. I'm working on that.
It's still on the ship, right? It's still coming across from Japan.
They've been a dream to work with, and I'm super grateful for our partnership. But you know, the whole collaboration was predicated on the fact that, you know, luxury should be lived in. Luxury should not be something that you put on a shelf, that you use, that you invest in, and that you use. And it's funny that you brought that up. I just, you know, I wanted to kind of talk about the similarities there. And, you know, I think that's something that we really preach. You know, Monte Coe's slogan is "Carry us with you." We created our first weekender with the intention that people would not only take it on vacation, but take it to the gym, take it to the office, commute from wherever they were going, even go grocery shopping with it. You know, like day-to-day life, and actually live in those products. So, you know, that's one of our.
I think it's a nice contrast because you see so much, like going back to like the whole, like, you know, North American perspective on things is like you have to constantly buy new, right? So it's sometimes it's better just to have something that's just good and it's just going to be used, and it's something that can be actually utilized but also look good at the same time, right? So tell us. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was going to say, can you take us back to like how you started? Like what kind of led to your inspiration for starting your own brand and creating your own products and designing them? Like, did you do this completely on your own? Like, was it just something that fell into your lap? Was it spontaneous, or like kind of just what led to you creating what you have so far?
The initial conversation happened at a bar, so a little bit spontaneous. But no, Monte Coe started with you know, one of my good friends and my initial business partner, Matt Montemiro, whose nickname is Monty, and you know, we had started talking about we were starting to do some traveling, and I think that interest in getting like a really cool bag was something that was challenging. You know, back then, this was like 2012, and we're looking at, you know, ultra high luxury products, or we were looking kind of at like discount, you know, products that were put out by discount brands that, you know, were made overseas. They were made with like not real leather, genuine leather. They were, you know, and there were products that were going to fall apart, and there was really nothing in the middle. And you know, we thought to ourselves, why not try to create something? So immediately our focus was like, well, like all of our grandparents immigrated here. They all started businesses. My grandmother was a seamstress.
Nice.
So, you know, she's literally been the best tailor I've ever met in my entire life. And that's what she did when she moved here. And I thought it was really inspiring to try and build a brand kind of on the back of that, and with that in our minds, that, you know, there was a lot of good manufacturing here in Toronto, so why can't it happen now? So that's kind of been one of our core values from the beginning. That's what's really like inspired me and inspired us and our entire team and our brand to keep pushing forward. It's definitely something that's very important to us. So, you know, you kind of had this gap in the market, which was obviously really, you know, you want to fill a gap, and there was an opportunity for product placement in that gap. But also there was that drive and that inspiration, that passion to build something unique and stylish and high quality, but here in Toronto. And that's something that we're very proud of, and something that we continue.
Were you guys ever concerned with the costs of production? Or was that ever like a concern? Did you ever think of like outsourcing back to Europe maybe? Because if they have the materials there, was it always the intention to kind of have the hub location, I guess, here in Toronto?
It was always the intention to have it here in Toronto. I think that, you know, that question comes up a lot, especially in terms of pricing and you know, where our product sits in terms of price point. But it's not something we've ever entertained. You know, it obviously gets asked a lot, and then maybe your brain starts ticking for 10, 15 seconds. Sure. But, you know, our core value, or one of our core values, is so deeply rooted in what our brand is, that it's not something that, you know, definitely wouldn't consider it anytime soon. And for the time being, like I said, like we talked about earlier, it would be nice to grow the brand and grow and give back to the community by developing a workforce potentially around our brand. And that's something that I would find a lot more inspiring, and something that I could be a lot more passionate about, versus outsourcing for the sake of putting an extra few dollars in my pocket for, you know, for every unit that I sell.
Sure. So another question that sort of, you know, comes up with that is, it's like, what's the likelihood of 4 guys coming together and like start working on, you know, designing luxury kind of bags and like accessories? It just, like, you know, I mean, obviously you had some sort of connection beforehand, right? Where you've met these partners beforehand. You guys were obviously all friends. So like take us back to maybe how did you all come about? In because obviously like the whole thing started off from a need, right? From you guys looking at a specific product type, and with something not really being available in the market. But like, what's the likelihood of four guys that are friends to start off a company that's based around that? You know what I mean? It's not really like an everyday thing that you hear about, which is not really bad at all whatsoever. It's just kind of take us through the process itself. Like, do like all your friends and all your partners have kind of background in that area as well, or?
I think the same way we developed the product for a specific need and a specific niche and a gap in the market, our partners kind of came to be. So, Matt and I were the original founders, and as once we kind of developed our product, we didn't have much experience in distribution.
Sure.
We definitely didn't have any experience in e-commerce. I mean, back, I still think we're at the infancy in e-commerce, and there's still so much shit that's going to happen in that space and growth. But we didn't really know what we were doing. So like my friend Nick, our partner, had already started a tech company. He was already familiar with Shopify. He kind of had a pulse on how to do things in that space, and he kind of approached us and said, "I think I can help." And then Ron, our other friend and our other partner, is in wholesale, or was in wholesale distribution, and is really good in that space. So our partnership came out of need.
So it's almost like the perfect pieces started falling together, which is really kind of interesting to see, because we speaking to a lot of other business owners and a lot of people that are involved in business, that's kind of the thing that we kind of gather from their stories too, is that once they start pushing in that specific direction, things just kind of start to come together, which is really interesting. It's almost like this weird kind of synergy, right? Like that kind of just helps you out. But funny enough, that's kind of been the case with our podcast as well, is because pretty much every single person we've reached out to has been so different, but yet so informative, and I think that they could really bring a lot to the table in terms of the things that we could learn from them, with them working on their business too. So it's great that you guys recognize that you still need to improve in certain areas, for example like e-commerce, like you said, right? But at the same time, it's really cool how you've had that initial bond with your friend, and then it sort of grew into something else as well, which is I think that I like the whole collaborative aspect of it as well too. And it's funny enough, that's kind of what we're working on right now, is because me and my brother we're partners in some of the other businesses that we're working on as well. And one of the people that we had on the podcast last was it last episode? No, 2 episodes ago, I think. We have a lot of kind of correlation, a lot of the things that we're kind of doing, and a lot of similarities. So we're kind of further exploring opportunities as well. So it's really kind of resonates with us right now too, from what you're telling me.
Yeah,
so it's really neat.
It's funny how opportunities will just kind of land in your lap sometimes, and that's just like the serendipity of the universe, and kind of the way things happen when you put yourself out there and network. And I think that's kind of how we all came to be. It was just obviously less on the networking side because we were friends, but it was just it was a collaborative type of like, all right, like this is a really great idea, and this could be a really great product and a really great brand. So let's do it together. And I've always kind of said to myself, like, if you're going to be successful, why not do it with the people that you're spending all your time with anyway?
Exactly.
So you can all be successful instead of doing it on your own and not being able to share in the glory of that success. So
and so it's almost like how they say, like, you are the top 5 people you spend the most time with, or something like that, right? Something like that. I think that's the saying. I'm not 100% if it is, but it kind of makes sense. If if you're going to be friends, if you're going to kind of have that relationship, might as well build something that's going to be lasting, that's going to work for all of you, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I believe that kind of top 5 averages thing. I've been fortunate enough to be surrounded by a really successful and smart, brilliant group of friends, which includes my business partners. And I think for anyone entrepreneur out there, I would say that it's really important who you surround yourself with, definitely on a day-to-day. So
Nice. Okay.
Yeah, it just kind of worked out.
Yeah.
Tell us more about your maybe education. Was it helpful? You know, with the development of your company?
No.
No.
No. No, I mean,
Did you go to school? What
yeah,
did you
yeah.
do? What'd you do?
I went to school. I went to Western. I majored in history.
Nice.
You
Okay.
know, at the time, I was thinking about becoming a teacher. I was really like romanticized about traveling and having summers off. But I think at one point I just realized it wasn't going to be enough for me. I've sort of always had an entrepreneurial spirit. I just never really knew how to pursue those emotions. I always used to like kind of say, oh, this company, like they should market like this. Like, oh, I've always really liked marketing. Yeah, so like my education has zero to do with where I am today. I think my experience in the workforce maybe has contributed more so to that.
Sure.
I come from, I did work in finance, and the particular space I was working in actually kind of was entrepreneurial in its own right, and it was kind of a sales environment. And I worked in a commercial banking space where we were giving out high leverage loans to entrepreneurs and business owners. And through that experience, I really started to learn how to read financial statements, but more so about how businesses really operated. And that kind of got my entrepreneurial juices like really, really flowing.
Sure.
I started to see like, okay, like this company sells X and is doing Y in gross margin, and like how are they doing this and who are they selling to? And I was asking all those questions as an analyst as to why the business was successful. So that like got me really interested in, and Monte Coe was already existing as a side hustle at this time. So it just started kind of slowly bringing me over. And then, obviously I would see some of the salaries these guys were making, and like I told you before we started recording this, I'm not driven by money, but you start to do the math and you start to say, okay, well, I'm working 60, 70 hours a week for someone else, and this guy's probably working less time and making that. So it just was like the next logical step for me. And Monte Coe was having some successes at the time. We started working with a super well-known retailer in Holt Renfrew.
Nice.
2 holiday seasons ago.
That's amazing. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. And we started to get some notoriety, and you start to see little things serendipitously happening, right? Like that was just the brand kind of being out there, and I think it was just like a culmination of my work experience and then like a lot of serendipitous moments happening with the brand that was just like, okay, like this is something that you should be doing. Like, the universe is telling you that like this is the time, and that you should do this. So I have 5 nieces and nephews, and I try not to be that uncle that's like, don't go to school because it's useless. What I do think about education and being an entrepreneur is that if you want to be an entrepreneur, don't even go to school. But if you want to be a lawyer, if you want to be a lawyer, if you want to be a doctor, if you want to be a banker and work in finance, like sure, like that. There's obvious reasons why you would want to get a higher education to do those things. I don't think entrepreneurship can necessarily be taught. I didn't know shit about it when I started. I could say I don't know shit about it now. I think it's just like a constant learning and evolution of self, and you can't be taught that.
Of course.
I don't think you can be taught that in school. You gotta, it's like I'm thinking, we're fresh off a Maple Leafs loss last night in Game 7, and I'm thinking about reasons as to why that game was lost, and in my head it comes down to experience, and I think that's kind of the same nucleus for an entrepreneur. Is like a lot of good decision making and success comes down to experience, and you have to go through the bullshit and the losses and the hardships to grow and evolve and be able to kind of take it to the next level. And that's where I think the education piece is.
But I think it's also recognizing, issues that you have. For example, even going back to the analogy with Maple Leafs, right? For example, for the last 2-3 seasons, they've had issues with their power play, right? So their special teams weren't really addressed. So that's one of the things that it's like, if you want to be a champ, if you want to win the Stanley Cup, you have to address those areas, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if you know it's there and you're not really doing anything about it, and it's not really improving over time, it's kind of like, yeah, you can sort of try to go along, but how far can you make it, right? So it's that too, I think.
Complacency is a killer.
Yeah.
And if things remain the same in anything, whether it's hockey or a business, or even self-growth, like, you're probably not going to see too many things change, and you're not going to see too much success. And I think, that's where the beauty lies in being an entrepreneur, is being self-aware and knowing what you're good at and what you're not good at and when you need to improve at, and learning from all of those things, and especially the things that you're not good at and that you can improve at. I think that's where people start to evolve. For example, I hate public speaking. And
so you're challenging yourself because you're trying to get in the public through other means, right? For example, like being on the podcast today.
Absolutely.
Which is awesome.
I'm really trying not to think about that camera there. And
the other camera that you set up too.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm trying to be as authentic as possible.
Sure.
And not worry about it. And like a month or two ago, I did my first panel discussion, and I was like super ultra nervous. That's
with City Moguls too, I think, right?
With City Moguls,
because
so you had Danny on the podcast.
Yeah, because so tell us more about that experience and how did that go, and like what was the reason that you were on the panel in the first place? Did you get chosen? Did you get picked out by,
so
your involvement?
The backstory with that is that we were nominated to be in the City Moguls fashion show, which is a charity fashion show where we raised $50,000 last November for Covenant House Toronto.
Nice. That's amazing.
Yeah, it was great. It was fantastic, and Danny and Victoria and the whole City Moguls team, had us on there, and it was a fantastic networking experience. And obviously, I built a relationship with them. So we kind of just sat for coffee a little while after the holidays, and they were talking about panels, and I suggested growth hacking would be a good topic, and before I knew it, I was on the panel, and I had no idea what the hell I was even doing and talking about, and I was nervous, and that was one of those instances where I just said, hey, like, you just got to do this. You got to challenge yourself. You're probably going to be really bad at it. You're probably going to feel uncomfortable, and you're probably going to be embarrassed afterwards about some of the shit that you say or the fact that you're super nervous. And I was, but now I'm doing a podcast, and now if someone asks me to do a panel, I'm still going to be nervous, but the second time is going to be better than the first time, and the third time is going to be better than the second time, and hopefully, in 10 years, this podcast is massive, and we're looking back to this video.
Yeah, 15 years from now, your kids could be watching this, right, or something. You never know.
Which is pretty cool. You don't know, right? So, that's kind of how that all came to be.
That's awesome. I think that it's good to push yourself to kind of go through new experiences and through new challenges, and I think that it's very commendable of you to kind of try to push yourself beyond your limits as well. So going back to your business, with working with 3 other partners, so with the 4 of you guys, being in this business, are you the one that's involved with like all the numbers and stuff? Because you said you're kind of good at that thing, right? So is that sort of your role within the company? Like what are the different roles that you guys kind of try to work on? Because I remember you said, I think it was Nick you said, right? That was dealing with all the IT stuff, right? And Matt was one of the ones who initially I think came up with the idea together with you about the bags and. And how difficult is it to kind of work with all these different partners? And because I think sometimes a lot of the times when you have a family business, it makes it so much more difficult. But then if there's 4 of you guys, even though you're friends, it really tests your friendship, right? To a completely different level where you kind of have to almost draw a line, and it's kind of hard to kind of differentiate sometimes between your friendship and kind of your partnership too, right? So
yeah, there's a lot of questions in there. I'm going to take them one at a time.
I just wanted to just load that question onto you.
Load me up here and let me go.
Just get you thinking, get you talking, man. Just to get you to forget about the camera.
I'm not even worried about that anymore. All right, so let's. The roles are tough. I mean, we try to define them more and more as the brand grows. For the most part, we all wear a lot of different hats. I would say myself, I kind of focus more on you know, the marketing side of things, the sales side of things, probably. Sure. You know, Matt now has kind of taken on, Matt also works in finance, has a finance background, so nice. He's taken on a lot of those responsibilities, so they can be taken off my plate. And, you know, Ron deals with a lot of our suppliers and our manufacturing, and he's really great at that. And Nick kind of deals with the e-commerce. So, you know, yeah, like working with 4 friends, I mean, can it be challenging? Sure, but like working with absolute strangers can be challenging as well, and that's kind of how I see it. I think at the end of the day, you need to have like a really high level of respect for whoever you're working with. Sure. And you know, that's ultimately the deciding factor. I actually think it could be more beneficial to be working with friends because there's probably a higher comfort level and therefore more transparency with the way you feel about things.
Sure, I can see that for sure.
You know, there's obviously been times where we've had to be brutally honest with each other and like the efforts that are being put in and you know, all sorts of stuff like that.
Comes with the territory, yeah.
But you know, at the end of the day, I know if I'm getting criticized, it's coming out of love, and it's coming out of, you know, them wanting me to become better, and it's not a personal attack. And I think that's really important. I think.
And also for the best interest of the common goal, which is the brand.
Absolutely, yeah, of course. And I mean, and that's probably at the core, the most important factor. I would say you make a really good point there, Alex. And yeah, but you know, we are a family. Like at the end of the day, like we've been friends for over 15 years. So the way I look at it is like they're like my extended 3 brothers, and we're gonna have our tiffs. We're going to have, you know, our times when we get to celebrate and enjoy the good moments, and you know, we signed up for it, so it comes with the territory. Respect and growing the brand are the, you know, paramount in that kind of dynamic. And I think so far, you know, we're all still friends, so we've done a pretty good job of managing it, I think.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, speaking in regards to you know, researching your product before you kind of go into business, right? Was that like a big chunk of like preliminary like evaluation process that you guys have done as well before you kind of went with this idea?
It wasn't that extensive. I wouldn't say it's that extensive, but like we definitely, you know, the nice thing is like the internet existed. So we didn't have to necessarily go like store to store and see what was out there, which we did still, but you know, there were a lot of brands overseas that we saw. There were a lot of brands local. Obviously, you know about always know about like the local brands here. You know, like about, you know, the Ralph Lauren's. You know about all those kind of brands, and what their product offerings are. We just felt that we could do something a lot better. You know, a lot higher quality, a lot more stylish, support local craftsmanship, and I think to date we're doing that. So, you know, it wasn't like this crazy like a lot of market research, but we definitely did a little bit. We just learned really fast that there was a gap in that market. You know, there wasn't anything. There wasn't any luxury products at an entry to luxury price point. So like if you wanted luxury, you're paying $2,500 at least, bottom line. Yeah. And it didn't matter if it said genuine leather, you're paying for brand. Absolutely. And what we wanted to do is, you know, move away from paying for brand. That's why you don't see a lot of flashy logos on our stuff. We just wanted to build something really distinguishable and you know, something that would develop its own word of mouth reputation as our customer base grows. And I think that's exactly what we're accomplishing. Obviously, you know, that's a slow game. You know, there's people out, when you talk about sales and marketing, there's a really big difference. Like marketing is brand, of course, right? And that's what we're trying to do. We're not really trying to take shortcuts by selling product really quickly. It's just kind of building a brand in that middle ground, and that's kind of what our MO is right now.
Talk about a little bit about, like, since you touched base on marketing, do you guys utilize any kind of social media strategies to kind of try to push your brand as well, and how successful have you been with that kind of thing, right? So just maybe talk about that a bit.
And Instagram's our number one go-to. You know, that's where we get a lot of interaction from our community.
Sure.
That's where...
Is that would you say like that's kind of the demographic that you're going after as well? Is the people on Instagram?
Yeah, probably. You know, our demo, it's changing all the time, but you know, I think we're in that 25 to 40 demo. So less people on Facebook, more people on Instagram.
Sure, of course, yeah.
And yeah, that's where we do a lot of our marketing. That's where a lot of our customers hang out. That's where we engage with a lot of them. You know, email marketing, no matter what people say, is still very much alive.
I think I agree with you 100% because I think it's one of those things that's kind of like a constant reminder that you guys are there.
Yeah.
So it's like, you know, you receive an email from Reebok or Nike or whatever, right? It's always there in the back of your mind. It's like, oh yeah, like I remember about these guys, right?
Yeah, and it's not always about sales, right? Like
Yeah.
there's different tactics to staying top of mind because the truth is there's a lot of brands out there and like there's a lot of people there's a lot of Facebook ads that you see and like you know
Some not so good maybe.
sure, yeah, and there's a ton that are not so good and,
Yeah.
and you know we've had not so good ads and we've had great ads and like you know that again that's a learning curve but
Sure.
yeah, I think Instagram's where we hang out. We definitely use our cadence always changes with email marketing. You know, we don't like to badger like the Reeboks and the Adidas of the world. They probably send a lot of emails.
Of course,
They
yeah.
also have a lot more users, so that's probably why. But one space I find really interesting right now is Pinterest, and I'm starting to get my feet wet with that. But I think we're going to see an enormous amount of growth on Pinterest, and that's because it's like a hybrid to me of Google AdWords and Instagram. So, you know, there's a lot of search intent. People go on there to discover new brands. People go on there for very specific, you know, keyword searches.
Definitely.
So you get that like very targeted customer, but it's also very visual, and people don't want to read anymore. So, you know, I think that space is going to explode. I think not just for like brands like mine. I think for a lot of different spaces, it's going to blow up. Click-through rates are pretty high. Cost per click is pretty low, and I mean, it's not really rocket science. It's not like there's no algorithm. You know, it's just paid ads. They're right there. I just find it simple and intuitive. And who knows how much that's going to change? Like Facebook ads have changed a ton, and so have Instagram. But that's a space that, depending on your niche and your business, could be really good. I know for ours it could probably be pretty good. It's just a matter of learning about it and figuring it out. It could even be good for promoting podcasts. But you know, it's such a powerful network. And I read a stat the other day, or I was on a webinar actually, and 70% of people on Pinterest are there to discover a new brand, and of those 70%, there's like a 90% buy rate from those people.
That's amazing.
Which is like astronomically high.
Yeah.
And that's going to change, obviously, as more brands start to migrate. Yeah, that's one place I'd be looking, and one place that I'm really interested in right now.
No, that's really cool. I think that a lot of big businesses are slowly starting to keep into social media because they're finally starting to realize the potential they can have. Like for example, I think Coke recently they started advertising on Facebook too. But I think that once all those big brands kind of jump on that bandwagon, it's going to be so much more expensive for people to try to kind of stand out, right? Because the advertising costs are going to increase, and you know the views are going to probably decrease, right? So one of the things that that's kind of funny was the statistics I was looking at yesterday, and they're talking about bringing new changes to Instagram. And one of the changes they're talking about is getting rid of likes completely.
I heard this.
So it's going to really, I think, change kind of the landscape of what Instagram is, because it's kind of, in one way, it's kind of funny because Instagram is all about influencers, right? And it's always about the numbers. But at the same time, if they're trying to bring more focus on the actual content itself, it means that people are going to have to really step up their game in terms of the stuff that they share, right? So So like, what I mean, it's going to be a really interesting kind of a change that's going to occur. I think it's going to have a nice, really ripple effect. I think in social media in the next little while. So whether they implement it or not, I don't really know. I mean, they're still testing it, right? So
I don't even know where to start on this. So one entrepreneur that I look up to all the time is Gary Vaynerchuk, and he's eccentric and he's loud, but to me he knows his shit, especially in social, and he's someone that always preaches, what are you gonna do if Instagram disappears off the face of the earth? And it's not disappearing off the face of the earth, but that's a big major change. That's a big major change for brands like me, who might want to look at influencer marketing. And there's a major change for those influencers. And I'm gonna say as a human that I really like that change. I think there's a lot of social pressure that goes with Instagram, and I think a lot of people spend too much time posting and checking the likes over just putting the content out for the sake of putting out the content. And I think that change will start to skew that culture. And I think that's good ultimately for humanity and for people. But it's obviously going to change things as a business owner and an entrepreneur. The thing is, insights were still going to exist, and I just think there'll be less bullshit influencers, right?
Sure, of course.
So I think now, instead of, and this happens all the time.
Purchased likes or purchased followers and all that stuff, right?
Yeah, that's gone now.
Yeah.
And it's a big problem out there. Like as someone who's always looking at influencers, I'm a little apprehensive of influencer marketing, because I'm sure there's people out there that are very good at disguising the fact that they're not actually getting any likes. And it sucks for the people that are. And it sucks for the brands that want to work with those people. And it just overinflates the whole market, because now everyone's a friggin' influencer. And brands are losing money off throwing product at people that aren't bringing in any ROI. So I think the changes will be good, and I think the really good influencers, the true influencers, you'll now be able to kind of spot out and see their content and be like, this is the person that I want to work with, versus looking at their likes or their likes. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So I'm kind of for the change, I have to say. I mean, it's probably going to give me some headaches, as I start to spend a little bit more in influencer marketing, but I like that change for Instagram. I really do.
With you being like a real big follower of Gary Vee, right? One of the things that he always constantly preaches about is being across multiple different mediums, right? So is that something that you find is kind of challenging for your brand, because it's perceived to some extent as a luxury brand too?
Definitely.
And then because of that, it's kind of harder to kind of, put out content through those multiple channels. And what are some of the strategies that you guys are maybe possibly looking to adopt in the future? For one of these brands, and if 90% of it leads to an actual sale, that's incredible.
Yeah.
And that's something that that right there is a gold nugget that probably a lot of our viewers can probably take away from that, right? So
absolutely.
Yes.
And I mean, I think you got to be a little bit cautious with the stats sometimes, because for my space, I always ask, what price point are those numbers talking about?
Of course.
Are those numbers applicable to a luxury product?
Yeah.
Or what percentage are applicable to a luxury product? So I think there's always more questions behind stats, and people, you should always do your due diligence before you go all in. Obviously, I mean, I think that goes without saying, but maybe for the unseasoned entrepreneur, don't just throw all your eggs in one basket and cross your fingers and hope that for the best. Do some testing. But I've totally lost track of the original question that you asked. Oh, our strategies, yeah. It's something that I actually do struggle with. It's funny that you asked, because I think LinkedIn's a super powerful tool for content. I think there's a lot of good content on there, but it's also very professional. So, you have to really adapt the content you put out to that niche, where Instagram is Instagram. It's very visual. It's very more lifestyle. So you're.
But LinkedIn is evolving in a lot of ways, and from what we've seen in terms of statistics and sort of just based on our research too, we find that it's probably one of the best social media platforms right now where we can actually create a lot of organic growth too, right? And that's funny enough. That's what Gary Vee keeps talking about as well, right? So.
Yeah, but like I said, I agree 100%. But like I said, you need to have, it's the way that you're talking to that audience. So I can't talk to the same people on Instagram that I can talk to on LinkedIn.
And it shouldn't be a recycled material. I agree with you 100%.
Right? And
Yeah.
I can't talk to the people on Pinterest to the same way that I talk to people on Twitter. So, you know, for us, I think that you're always strapped for time. That's the problem with, you know, running a lean ship, which we do. You know, there's 4 of us.
Lean startup, yeah. Sure.
And we are still very much a startup. You know, we've been around for 7 years, but you know, half of that time was spent building a product. We only really launched as a business in 2015 when we did our first crowdfunding campaign. So like, in the grand scheme of things, we're really ultra young. So there's always that struggle of finding time between doing the manager side of things and doing, you know, the maker or the growth side of things. And, you know, we focus on Instagram because that's been our bread and butter. And I'm always trying to think of new ways that I can adjust and talk to other audiences. But it really just comes down to finding the time to do it. So, yeah, there's no concrete strategies, but I definitely, like on a macro level, have an idea of like how I want to market to everyone. I think it's just like finding a way to scale those strategies.
No, it's definitely. I mean, I think it's definitely challenging for every brand to kind of find their own voice to some extent as well, and be able to use it in a different approach on different you know, types of medias as well. So it totally resonates with me. Maybe speak about the actual crowdfunding campaign as well and how that helped your business, and maybe, you know, you can give some advices or some pointers to anybody that's kind of looking to maybe utilize that platform, and, you know, what was your experience like? And then with that, maybe we can speak about, you know, the experience that's kind of behind the scenes, and, you know, how was that sort of, you know, in the last 7 years with the company developing and growing?
Yeah, absolutely. So this question comes at a good time because we're actually about to launch our second crowdfunding campaign in 2 weeks.
Nice.
But the first one was really our coming out party. We launched it on Indiegogo. We launched it absolutely blind and not really knowing what we were doing. You know, crowdfunding was relatively new at that time, so now there's a lot of different strategies and different things you can do to really supplement a successful campaign. We think, at least. I guess we're going to find out. But yeah, you know, I think crowdfunding is an incredible way for a young startup or a startup or an idea to get some legs. So, you know, at the time we had, I think, 4 products, maybe not even. We had less than that. So we launched with 3 weekenders, 2 briefcases, and 2 toiletry cases. That's how we launched our Indiegogo campaign. And what was really cool about that is that, you know, you're obviously trading off a little bit of value with a discount for your early backers, but you're building a tribe of people that is supporting you from the beginning.
Or a repeat customer down the line, right? So, yeah.
Right, down the line. But those are going to be your ambassadors. Those are going to be your, you know, like your tribe members that like let people know what you're all about. So it's a little bit more than just raising money, because at the end of the day, realistically, once like you deduct all the fees and once you know, pay for, you know, there's always ancillary costs involved.
Of course.
You're not really left with that much. You're like, you know, we raised $52,000. I can't remember what number we ended up with. It obviously helps take a step forward, but I think where the magic really is with the crowdfunding campaigns is like developing that tribe and those customers and getting those emails of people that you can market to and build a community with. That's where I think, you know, people can really take advantage, and I would say that's like a major growth hack for a startup. Is obviously money's hard to come by, but you kind of get like two. You know, it's like a multifaceted approach to growing your business.
It's really kind of resonates with us because we actually helped a filmmaker recently set up a crowdfunding campaign where she was able to, I think it was something in the range of $50,000 that she was trying to raise as well, and it ended up being successful at the end. But one of the areas that we helped her with was trying to, you know, find potential investors through Facebook by utilizing, you know, that strategy as well. So with the first one that you guys ran, was there any kind of support or any kind of additional things that you were trying to push this campaign with? And is that something like a kind of a learning curve that you guys have utilized that you're going to be implementing in the second round of funding that you're trying to run?
Yeah, so that's what I was kind of alluding to when I said like we kind of went in blind and like didn't know really much about it. Like all we really knew was the sooner you hit your goal, the more likely you were to have a lot of ancillary positive things happen. So like either the campaign, the platform would put you in their email blast or put you on the homepage, or what happened with us is that we got a lot of attention because from PR companies and journalists and stuff that were like, oh, this Canadian brand has now hit their goal in 48 hours. They're at like 30 grand and their goal was 20,000. So you started to get a lot of press, and that was just all really organic. I don't think we even paid for anything back then. We didn't have the money to, so we didn't. I know that we didn't.
Going back to that serendipity thing, right? So
yeah, things just happen when you kind of. I mean, when it comes down to working hard and making good decisions, and this time around, we have a bit more money. We have a few more contacts. We've obviously been around a long time, so we do have some media connections. I don't know how much that is actually going to help because at the end of the day, the consumer is your backer and they make that decision.
Sure.
But hopefully there will be ways to scale that awareness and that exposure once our campaign goes live. So yeah, I mean we're gonna do a bit of paid, but I don't know if it's gonna work. At the end of the day, like that customer's got to spend the money. So
exactly.
We're gonna do our best to promote it through our community. Obviously, this comes.
You should definitely you use those ambassadors. Yeah.
And see what happens. I mean, from our research, we've seen some pretty successful Kickstarters. I haven't seen. We're launching a grooming kit. It's a 6-piece grooming kit, so it'll come with like a tweezer, a nail file, scissors. What else is in there? A comb. I'm missing something. Nail clippers, and we partnered up with another Toronto brand. She's brand name is Artistile.
Okay.
And she does luxury grooming tools that come from Italy.
Amazing.
They're really remarkable.
Sounds very complimentary. That's actually was leading me into one of the other questions that I had was about collaborations because that's such a big thing now, especially in like fashion industry, and that's like always collaborating, like bringing two big brands together, or even two like well-recognized brands, like maybe like yours and the one you just spoke of, right? So
yeah, so Artistile is, I'd say we're emerging brands, the two of us.
Sure.
She does, like I said, really great tools. They come from Italy. The really nice thing about these tools is that they're a lot different from like a tweezer or a nail file or something that you would buy at Shoppers.
Right.
For one, they come from Italy, so I don't know exactly where all these other mass-produced tools come from, but I'm assuming they're from overseas, and I'm assuming they're from, factories in developing countries.
Probably, most likely, yeah.
95%
of the time, most likely, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I'm not going to call it specific brands because I don't know, but like that's just my general assumption. So these come from Italy. They're made from surgical grade stainless steel, so they won't rust. Versus other products that are stainless steel coated and who knows what's inside.
Sure.
But they also are made and manufactured with free of harmful metals, and that makes them really good for skin sensitivities or just for the well-being of your skin in general. So the reason we're launching this product is because we really like these. Like you said, there's a synergy and a complementary aspect with the Italian tools and our Italian craftsmanship. We're making the leather case for it here in Toronto, which we're doing with Italian veg tan leather. And I think what we're trying to do is we've created a product that is great for travel, it's great for on the go, it's great for storing your products at home. I know most of us probably have our tweezers and all those kind of bathroom tools in a drawer. So this will keep them all nice, and yeah, it's really showcasing Italian and Canadian craftsmanship, but also like the importance of so many people, like, self-care is so important now, right? Like, so many people care about, like, the shampoos that they're using and the conditioners that they're using. Are they organic, or like, what are they made from?
If it has parabens or something like that, yeah.
Paraben free. I use a deodorant that has no aluminum in it. Like, these are things that, like,
Same here, man.
right? Yeah, that people are really starting to think about now.
Consumers are getting really smart, man. Yeah.
Really, really smart. And like a stat that's really important to me and something that sticks out to me is, like, 50% of people now, like, pay attention to where their products are made or what goes into those products. And I think it's like, holy shit, like, why does everyone care about, like, the moisturizers and the shampoos and all the serums and all the shit that they're in the deodorants, but, like, they don't care about the actual tools that are going into their skin, or, like, filing their nails and I'm just like, shit, it's crazy. Like, people could care about everything else. Like, how come no one cares about this? And so that's kind of why we're coming out with this product. I think there's a need for it. I think there's a want for it. It will be kind of at a luxury price tag. It depends on how the crowdfunding campaign goes, but like, based on where the tools come from and the leather and everything that we're sourcing, you're probably looking at like a retail price of $199, but with Kickstarter, you're getting people access to that at like 40 or 50% off.
Which is incredible, really. It's a great opportunity, really.
And it's an opportunity for our current consumers and potential new consumers to get a product that is actually incredible, but at a discount, which we never do. At the same time, we're getting to raise a bit of money, and we're getting some lead time to produce this thing. So I think that's also what's really important about a crowdfunding campaign, is that you don't have to necessarily invest a lot up front to get a product to the market. If the product's meant to be in the market, if there's a fit, then, like, it's going to sell. And like, the result of that Kickstarter will really indicate to us that this is smart and this is good, or that maybe it's not a really great idea. And I think that's also really powerful, along with the other stuff and the other aspects that I mentioned a little bit earlier.
Do you feel like it's kind of hard because with all of you guys involved in the company, you have to be constantly be generating consistent revenue in order for you to kind of to grow yourself, right? To kind of follow that long-term strategy as well. Is it difficult because I don't know, like, what your full involvement is, like, specific you maybe and your partners, because I'm sure you guys probably have like other side hustles that you're probably involved in as well, right? So is it kind of hard to kind of balance that as well, and having this in running this company full time?
Yeah, I mean,
because I think that the reason why I'm asking that question is because there's a lot of youngsters, I think, nowadays, and they always talk about, like, passive income, right? So it seems like, to them, it seems kind of like a no-brainer to kind of be involved in the company, like, to some extent, but also be, like, trying to kind of run other things at the same time, right? So that's kind of the reason why I'm asking this question, is because because I think people have the perception that, oh, it's easy, I'll just start off and get have some additional income flowing into me, like, no problem, right? So
I think where people lose the message with passive income is, like, yes, like, everybody wants passive income, but for anyone that's read his name's escaping me, I think it's David Kiyosaki, the Rich Dad Poor Dad series.
Of course.
He preaches the passive income thing, and it's great, and, like, I'm a big believer in it, and that those are my goals as well in life, but here's, I think, what people miss is, like, I don't know why my laptop's you need to actually build something to use those assets and then create other assets to give you passive income. So unless the number one thing he says is, like, if you don't have money, then the best thing you should do is build a business. I think the problem with youngsters nowadays is they think it's easy, and maybe it is. I'm sure there's ways to make some quick money online, but that well is going to run dry unless you build a foundation for it.
Sure.
So, to answer your question, like, right now, I'm completely committed to this project, like this Monte Coe. My goal is to, take this thing into 7 figures and beyond, and you know, at that point I'll start thinking maybe about passive income. I am really interested in starting a podcast to complement Monte Coe, but
That's one of the things we were mentioning before we started rolling, actually, yeah.
Yeah, and
I think that would be a fantastic, because I'll let you finish, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, it's all good. I mean, this has definitely been a great experience to make me feel like it's a great idea, because I think there's a lot of value to be brought to people, but I think that you got to build something first, you know? If you can't build shit, then like, you're not going to get passive income. I don't care like what you do. Like, you got to know, you got to go through the strength, through the, you know, the losses and the learnings of building something, and then, you know, build something else, and then build something else, and then that's where the passive income comes from. If you don't know how to build, you know, you're not really going to get much out of anything. So, yeah, you know, like you alluded to earlier, like 2 of our partners are still not 100% full-time. They each have their own things going on. They're very successful in those things. And finding time, I think, for them can be a bit challenging, but, you know, everyone pulls their weight. And like we talked about earlier, like the group mission is to grow Monte Coe and to build a global brand. That's always going to be our goal with it. So, you know, it's just plucking away and working our asses off and making it work.
Nice.
You know, that's what entrepreneurship is all about, making it work.
It's finding the ways to make it work. I think that's what you're trying to get into.
Yeah.
But I think that the reason your laptop went off is because you're probably giving us like a really inspirational thought, and
it's like bookmark that
it's almost like the music went, and it just all of a sudden you gave us like a really good thought, and it was really cool. Because one of the things we do with the podcast is sometimes we'll go through, like a lot of the times before we post it, we obviously go through it all. We try to like re-listen to the whole episode, because we want to put, you know, like a good description of the actual episode and what we're going to be talking about. But one of the things that we try to focus on is maybe finding like that quote that kind of sticks out, and that you know, that could be it. So that could be like a perfect marker for us for that.
Okay. We'll see.
Yeah. One of the things that I wanted to talk to you about is maybe like what are some of the, you know, long-term plans, without maybe obviously giving away too much strategy in terms of your company, but like where are you guys trying to sort of take this company, you know, in the future, like, you know, further product developments, you know, growth into maybe more traditional brick and mortar stuff kind of thing, right? So like what is how do you see sort of with, you know, with this company the way where it stands in right now? Because it's interesting, it's like an interesting time right now, because e-commerce is such a big thing, right? So do you just, you know, double down on that and just go all in and try to kind of push that, or do you try to kind of stick with, you know, the traditional format as well to some extent? Because it is very much like you know, I don't want to say like a super luxury good, because you said yourself it's, you know, it's affordable luxury, right? So more so, at least that's what I gathered from what you were telling me. But like how does one try to kind of pursue, you know, growth of a brand long term, and, you know, in an environment that's kind of so changing and so, like, you know, so timely and so like different now from what it was even maybe 10 years ago, right?
It's again, like, I think we're in a place right now in consumerism there's a lot of unknowns and there's a lot of opportunity, but I do think that, you know, we're still at that threshold of uncertainty. So, you know, for us, like, yeah, of course, e-commerce is a channel that can get us a lot of exposure globally. It can really help us acquire our own customers, where, you know, when you think 20 years ago, brands didn't really have, like, they had their own customers, and, you know, the brands that had their own brick and mortar had their own customers, but like the brands that sold into retail maybe didn't.
No, I'm just going back to like what you originally were mentioning, because you guys, you know, had that partnership where you were able to actually enter one of the brick and mortars, right? Which is it's really fantastic, because it totally resonates with what you guys are trying to represent yourself, you know, in terms of what your brand stands for, right? So that's kind of why I'm trying to kind of get a grasp of what it is that you guys are trying to do in terms of long term, right? So that's
yeah. So I mean, the short answer to that question is that, you know, you need those partners to support the growth of your brand. You know, I know everyone thinks retail is dying, but the truth is, I think it's just going through an adaptation and an iteration of what it actually is. You know, you're seeing a lot of retail spaces become more experiential,
Sure.
versus, just selling product. And the people that are running these retail companies and these like these big retailers like Hudson's Bays and the Holt Renfrews and the Nordstroms of the world, they're smart people. Like they're going to navigate and they're going to figure out how to get people back in their stores, and that's good for brands that are working with those people, because they're going to continue to try to move product through their stores. So I think brands, especially younger brands, need the support of those retailers. I think naturally the e-commerce will grow on its own, organically as a brand grows. For now, that's our strategy, is to obviously we want to learn more and more about the e-commerce space, because there's so many ways to market there.
Unlimited opportunities to grow, probably, right?
But yeah, there's unlimited, exactly. So the focus on that, but also focus on building really good relationships with retailers that can be brand ambassadors and really help promote and get your brand name out there.
Nice.
Because at the end of the day, I still think people want to go touch and feel and try on and get that human experience before they buy. I don't know how long that's going to go on for, because younger and younger, the older and older people get, that younger generation is becoming more comfortable with buying online. But like my niece, for example, is 16, going to be 17 years old. She still would rather go to the mall. Now, I don't know if that's because she wants to get out of the house and away from her
Probably.
parents.
Just hang out with her friends.
But they don't shop online yet. So, like we're in a weird...
Once she has a credit card, it's probably going to be a little bit of a different story,
sure,
right?
That's probably it too. But that's going to be our strategy, is to continue doing what we're doing, work with our current partners and develop new partners, retail partners, and learn e-commerce along the way. I think it's just like an evolving kind of space. We're
awesome. Okay, great.
Yeah, sorry to ramble on there.
No, not at all. It's interesting to always hear, because everybody has a different perspective, and I think sort of like a different story in this, in terms of how they're trying to promote their brand. So it's always great to hear, from everyone, kind of their opinions, and plus it's kind of very interesting to us because we're involved in the social media space and marketing and stuff like that. So it's always relevant to us and what we're trying to do, and it's just interesting, honestly. That's just the point. Tell us a little bit more about the actual manufacturing process, because you said that you have second and third generation people that work with this leather, and maybe talk about that process as well, right? I mean, has it sort of allowed them to kind of revamp and change their approach in what they do, maybe like their careers? Because if they were involved in a similar kind of industry, right, how has it been for them to sort of adapt to your product? And I'd like to just talk about the actual production process, because I'm sure that it probably resonates a lot with you, because I think you were saying your grandma, right?
Yeah,
she was heavily involved in that kind of thing. So
yeah, absolutely.
Maybe you could just briefly touch on that.
Yeah, I mean, I think I alluded to a little bit earlier, like our manufacturing is like paramount to what we do. It's one of our core values to support locally run businesses and local manufacturing that's socially and morally responsible. And
tell us maybe more about the actual people that are involved in it, because I think that it's always interesting to hear about that, right? Because when you have, it's almost like you're going back to things like, let's say, like if you have like an AMG kind of built, they'll have like a handwritten kind of thing, like that was manufactured by this person, and they'll actually put like the actual stamp, their name on it, right? So whereas it's always interesting to, because in the world of consumerism, it's always interesting to kind of find out more about the actual people that manufacture the product itself, because they, to some extent, it might be like a mass-produced, not mass-produced, but handcrafted product, but at the same time, it's kind of like they put a little piece of their soul into this product as well, right? So
yeah,
that's kind of what I want to find out. Like, is there like an uncle, that's somehow related to somebody maybe in the family that could be, involved in the actual production process, and like you know, tell us some stories about that, because I think it's always interesting to hear about that kind of thing, right?
Yeah, so like our head craftsman is he's second generation Italian. He is absolutely incredible at what he does. He's an artist.
What is his name?
His name's Frank.
Frank, okay.
Yeah, Frank is our best friend, you know, to our business. He has been there from the beginning since I found him. And
how did you find him?
I Googled it.
Google.
It was hard to find though. He's like buried on like the 10th page.
Right.
But
You okay?
Yeah,
we can get him some water.
Grab some more if you want.
I'm good.
I'm gonna grab some too. I found him, met with him. You know, he's your typical Italian kind of nonno style guy. He's got a young family. His daughter works there as well. The amazing thing about
So it's definitely a family business, right?
it's 100% a family-run business. His daughter Jessica works there, and you know they're not just like a manufacturer. Like to me, they are our extended Monte Coe family. We're partners in this business. So like, you know, we go in there, and you know, there's probably 8 people that work in there, and you know, generally speaking, we know everyone on a personal level. We go in there, we joke around. It's not, and it's not an authoritarian kind of environment. Everyone is enjoying what they're doing. They're really proud to make Monte Coe products. To be honest, like I think knowing that he and his team are providing the products that are in like the Hudson's Bays and the Holt Renfrews is, you know, pretty remarkable for them. I think it's like, and it is. It's really, really cool. But yeah, they're real people, man. Like they're, you know, there's a Portuguese lady and a black lady, and you know, there's a guy from Vietnam who worked at another brand before this that is like top notch, and like, you know, it really is just like a really tight knit family, and you know, they are as very much Monte Coe as you know, me and Nick and Ron and Matt are.
And I think that's really cool, because I honestly think that you guys should definitely do like a little like expose on them, because I think you should bring those faces to the front of the brand as well, because I think that in itself is going to resonate with a lot of the consumers, because they'll be like, oh, you know, like these people are real. They actually work here. They actually produce. They you know, manufacture this kind of stuff. So they actually put the labor of love into the actual production process. Yeah. So I think you guys should definitely document that. I think that's a really you know, the fascinating part of it.
So actually, our, you know, the video we just did for our Kickstarter kind of showcases, not explicitly, but does feature them, and we have done that before.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
Fantastic.
We're not, you know, we don't really hide who we work with. I mean, I'm not gonna like sit here and blast out their names, so to make it easy for people.
Of course,
but at the same time, like our relationship is so deep rooted, and you know, we're yin and yang. Like we're in our factory once or twice a week. Ron's talking to Frank every day, every other day. It's beyond him. It's beyond us paying him. It's, you know, we're going to grow together in this thing, and it is really comforting. You know?
Does Frank usually have a say in terms of the quality of materials that you guys pick out as you or?
Yeah, he's almost like a consultant to us. Like
Amazing.
We especially at the beginning when we were really, really green, you know, he's a master artist, and he can pick up a piece of leather and tell you, like, you know, so give you some context, like veg tan leather, it's an old world technique used to tan leather. Generally in the mass market, what's used right now is called chromium tanning. Sure. And chromium is a very harmful chemical used to finish leather. Veg tan leather is executed and completed with natural tannins from the earth, so barks, you know, kind of vegetation, and it's used to finish the leather. So it's, you know, uniquely eco-friendly, as eco-friendly as it could possibly be, and it takes, you know, 40 to 50 to 60 times longer to finish leather that way than it would with chromium tanning. So that's really important to us as well. Like we choose to use those leathers because of those characteristics. And it's also really durable, and only the best hides can be used with this method. So when we were sourcing this leather from day one, you know, Frank's the type of person that can like pick it up and be like, no, this is bullshit. This is not 100% veg tan leather. And in that,
I love those guys because they're like masters at the craft, right?
Literally,
So, yeah.
when I say a master artisan, he is a master artisan, and like he knows. It's like the little things, right? Like he knows the way, how thick the leather needs to be, so it can be skived a certain way. And skiving is when it runs through a machine and basically gets shaved down to a thickness that's manageable for him. He knows if it's going to crack. He knows almost where it comes from, and you know, we're really grateful for that. Like that's kind of, we've learned a lot from him. So like the knowledge from that perspective, and from the manufacturing and from the raw material perspective, like he's definitely kind of imparted on us over our years of working together.
Nice.
And yeah, there's just a lot of deep-rooted relationship together. He's, you know,
And it's probably always like a limited run of the actual production as well, right?
Yeah, usually.
For the actual products, because it's, you know, you guys are a little bit of a premium brand, right?
Yeah.
So that in itself kind of justifies the quality, as you were talking about, that, you know, Frank has those high standards that have to be met, right?
Absolutely. I mean, we do things in small batches, and everything is literally done. It's incredible when you go in there, because I think the perception is with the fashion industry, like when you look at other manufacturing and other brands, or like what you think of like what's happening behind the scenes, you just think of like these massive factories with people just like pumping shit out.
Sure, yeah.
And when you go in there, it's not like that at all. You know, it's like, you know, Victoria's here sewing the inner tubing of our bag, and like that's the final step, and they're about to flip it out. Where, you know, Lee's cutting 20 pieces of leather for like, it's just not at that massive scale, and like these are real people, and like for me that's like really inspiring, and it gives me a lot of purpose when I think that, you know, Monte Coe growing helps support Frank's business and those people that work in that business. So
And we love to hear stories like that, because I think that, you know, it can totally resonate with a lot of people, because it's always, you know, putting a name to the face, right? And I think that that's really important to recognize those people that are, especially like somebody like Frank, you know, who sounds like a true master, especially, you know, if he's got those high standards. And I think that that's the really cool part of it, right? And that's why I think that, you know, your products obviously have, you know, that heart and soul to them as well, because of Frank and his crew, right? That works on those kind of products.
Absolutely, there's a DNA in those products from you know, the team designing them, and you know, sourcing the raw materials that we want, and to the team that makes them right up to the final product. And I think that you can really see that, especially when you get to touch and feel it.
So maybe let's kind of roll back to, you know, the difficult processes, and like, you know, all the kind of stuff that's kind of always hidden behind the scenes. Because one of the things that we've kind of briefly touched on before we started with the podcast was, you know, with things, for example, like Instagram, right, is always coming off as a luxury brand, and always having, you know, like almost nearly perfect image about things, right? So talk more about, you know, the challenges and the difficulties that, you know, a business has to go through, maybe, and some of the things maybe that stand out, maybe that you're willing to share with us today, you know, that maybe to inspire some young people to let them know that it's not just all, you know, fun and games and driving, you know, top end like AMG, you know, Mercedes, and, you know, having popping bottles every weekend at the club, right?
I don't know what you're talking about. I still drive a Mazda. So.
Right. Well, see, that's it. That's what we want to hear is, you know, the actual true experience that, you know, the challenges that people face. And, you know, I think that's one of the things you were mentioning too, is some of your friends were saying to you is that, you know, maybe some of the things that they might interpret in a different light are, you know, not necessarily the reflection of maybe you as a person specifically, right?
Sure.
But maybe just touch base on that a little, if you're willing to open up about that, you know.
Yeah.
Because I think it's you know, sometimes it can be somewhat difficult for some of the businesses to kind of, you know, bring up all the stuff that's kind of always hidden in the back, right?
Yeah, I mean, those are probably a lot of things that go unnoticed, and they're probably things that a lot of people are very uncomfortable with talking about. I think naturally as people, we like to boast and talk about our successes, which is fine. But there's obviously a lot of backstory behind those successes, right? Like everyone always says, the term that always like makes me laugh is like, oh, that person's an overnight success. I'm like, no, they're not.
You just recognize them as an overnight success, but in reality, they've probably been doing it for the last 10 years, right?
Exactly.
So,
Like, you didn't know shit about them until today, but look up what they did over the last 10 years, and there's nothing overnight about this. So, you know, in the context of me, like, I love being an entrepreneur. I do. I've only been doing this for 2 years, not even 2 years. Sorry, I'm playing with the mics. And
No, it's okay.
Footage here.
It's all good.
And
unless you're like our other guest, our DJ guest, who took the mic and dropped it a couple of times. Hey, Claudio, you're probably watching too.
yeah, no,
I'm just joking.
Yeah, no, it's you know, there's a lot of very rewarding aspects of being an entrepreneur, and like I think there's a lot of growth potential, and you know, I think that's what a lot of people interpret entrepreneurship is. You know,
Potential and
then people see that like those superficial things, like those AMGs, and you know the popping bottles, and like, man, that's all shit. Like it's all garbage. Like when you get to, I'm gonna be 32, and like I don't give a shit about any of that stuff. You know, sure, like I'm sure at some point I'm gonna want a nicer vehicle. You know, but that's gonna be because I feel like I earned it. That's not gonna be because my buddy over there got an A4. Or, you know, that guy bought a bigger house. You know, like I think that's a trap that people get caught up in, and it's absolutely the wrong reasons to do things. So like, no, I don't have an AMG. I just drove you in the parking lot in my Mazda 3. Like you can vouch for me. I have a Mazda.
Absolutely, he does.
I have a Mazda 3.
And it's not the newer one either.
No, it's not the newer one. That thing's like 10 years old, and like I'm proud as shit about it because I don't need it, you know. I just need something to get me to work, and that's my focus right now is building work. So I want people to stop thinking about things being so freaking sexy all the time, because they can be, like, they're fun. There's like partnerships with Infinity are great, and like working with Hudson's Bay is fantastic. Like those are wins, obviously. I want to celebrate those, but I think like on the back end, that people don't see is like there's a lot of like stress. There's a lot of, you know, sleepless nights, and I mean I'm not that bad, but like there are nights where your mind just doesn't stop, and then like, you know, the next day you feel tired, and you got to deal with those things. I mean, I'm married. There's obviously a work-life balance that comes with it. I try to be really good about it. I try to, you know, be home at 7 and like dedicate time at home and like have dinner with my wife and stuff. But like I know guys out there that aren't, and maybe they're comfortable with that, and that's fine. But you know, there's I find those things are the most challenging. You know?
I agree with you, and that's one of the things that we always ask about is how do you find sort of, you know, find the sanity, because like especially running a startup, like, you know, go back to what you said, it's so challenging because there's so much on your plate and so much even like when you go to bed, right? And it's funny enough, but like, cause I'm gonna go back in my history, and because I used to work in the kitchens, and I used to like train with some chefs and stuff, right? And one of the things that I think one of the chefs said is he heard this, you know, somebody being interviewed on, I think it was CNN or something. I can't remember who it was, but specifically, but the chef that I used to work with, Chef Sebastian, one of the things he told me is that he heard this interview where somebody was asked, how do you measure success? And the guy replied by saying, when I can go at night and put my head down on a pillow and not think about anything and just fall asleep. So that's one of the things that always like stuck out with me. It's always like, wow, like, you know, like if you actually think about it, that makes total sense, because there's so much on your plate usually, you know, in terms of you running a business, that it, you know, it takes away so much of your soul, and you get so involved in these kind of things that it's really difficult to kind of, you know, find that balance and be able to go at night and fall asleep and not worry about stuff, right?
Yeah, and I think you got to get good at that, right? Like, you know, at the beginning, and I still do this to some degree, but like, no matter what, as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, especially at the beginning when like maybe you don't necessarily have staff and people to do like the grunt work, get in the dirt, excuse me, you need to learn how to balance, you know, that getting your rest and dealing with your stress. And I think that's something that like everyone's obviously going to deal with it, because especially at the beginning you're just very new and like you're very passionate, you're very aggressive, you know, you think you're invincible, you want to be up for 12, 15, 16 hours a day and just working, and like, but it's not sustainable. And I've become a really big proponent of living a healthy lifestyle to help me be like a successful entrepreneur. So or just to be an entrepreneur. I won't even self-title myself successful, but yeah, it's what I try to do now, and I think this is like one of the biggest takeaways anyone that listens to this can take away from it, is, you know, I wake up every day and I know that there's maybe a set amount of things that I want to accomplish in that day. So instead of having a to-do list of this long, I have a to-do list of this long, and I go after that list and I get that shit done. So when I get to 7 o'clock and I'm ready to go home and have dinner, I'm not worried about any of the shit that I was supposed to do, because I did it. And then the next day is going to come and I'm going to break down the next set of things that is the most immediate and important, and I'm going to get that done, and then I'm going to go home and stop worrying about all the shit that I have to do tomorrow.
Yeah, and it's smart because you're pacing yourself out. You're not overworking yourself one day so that your mind is clogged up and can't think for the next day.
Yeah, and I think that's what one thing I struggle with sometimes is that I do get overwhelmed and I'll look at all this stuff I have to do, and then you don't end up doing anything. You know, you end up doing something.
End up thinking about everything,
about all the stuff that you're supposed to be doing, and like, you know, I realized that in my first, I'd say 6 months, was that, you know, you can't just do everything at once, and like, not all these things actually need to get done. You know, I read a book called The One Thing, and I think the author's name is Gary Keller, if I remember correctly. But the book's called The One Thing, and like, you know, I'm not the biggest fan of the book, but like, there's definitely some takeaways that are like, all right, like, what's the one thing? And so it basically taught me to reverse engineer all of my goals. So everything from, you know, if my one thing is to be a $20 million company, well, guess what? Like, you can't do that today. So if you want that to take you 5 years, what does that $20 million plan look like in year 5? What does it look like in year 4, in year 3? And guess what? Now you're at year 1. What does it look like on day 364 and day 363, all the way to day 1? Now you're micromanaging a macro goal, and it's so much more attainable than looking at a 20 million or billion or X, looking at this big thing that you are like, how am I going to get there? And that's kind of what I learned to do, is to, that's what helps me kind of process at night and get back to me, is looking at my goals over a long period of time and being really patient with them, because, you know, things just take longer than you actually think they're going to take. I would have said after 2 years of being an entrepreneur that I would have wanted Monte Coe to be like a lot further. Now I realize that like everything just takes longer and takes more work, and you know, sometimes you need those stars to align, and you just got to make all the right decisions and do all the right things to get to that point. But you're not going to do it by trying to do a million things at once. So
I think that's a very healthy approach to utilizing, you know, in a lot of things in life, and I think it's very smart of you to you know, use that strategy, because I think it's very realistic in a lot of ways, but also it's, you know, you're still, you know, able to achieve those goals, and then you still feel, you know, able to feel kind of, you know, happy about, you know, being able to achieve even the small goals, right? So even if it's 10% forward each day, then it's still progress, right?
Even if it's 0.5% forward each day, like at the end of the year, that's a lot of percentage points, right?
Exactly.
And one thing I like to think about all the time is, you know, stress plus rest equals growth. That's something I think about all the time now. And, you know, stress not meaning like physical, like stress that we all feel, like anxiety stress, like stress think of like an athlete. You know, if I want to be the best basketball player of all time, then I'm going to spend a lot of time in that gym. I'm going to be working out. I'm going to be taking a lot of jump shots, but I can't do that for 24 hours. So I'm going to take that time that's dedicated to becoming really good at something, work at it really, really hard, aggressively, and attack it. But then I'm also going to go and sleep and take care of my body, and
the recovery
part of it. So I think entrepreneurship is the same shit. I think it's like, tell yourself you're going to work 12 hours a day and do those 12 hours really well, or 10 hours, or 8 hours, or whatever. Like they even say that you can't even exert like a certain amount of positive, productive energy for more than 4 or 5 hours a day.
That's true. I've heard that further before too. Yeah.
So if that's the case, then like do those 5 hours really damn good. And you know what I like to do is kind of get an early start. So like if I start at 8 a.m. or 7 a.m., I don't really start at 7. So I like to work out in the morning, but like somewhere between 7 and 8, then I feel pretty accomplished by noon. You know, by the time I'm sitting down to eat something for lunch, you feel pretty good about yourself. And now you don't have to necessarily stress about working. What do I have to do the next 5 hours? Because that should actually just be, you know, gravy, and that should just be, you know, bonus. So it's having that mindset. You know, I think the mindset is something that if I can impart on anyone would be, get your mind right. Like, get away from the AMGs and you know, keeping up with the Joneses, because the truth is, you know, the Joneses might get things faster and it might take you longer to get there, but when you get there, they're going to be looking at you. And I'm not saying that it should necessarily motivate someone, but it could put a little chip on your shoulder, and you can use that, you know, as inspiration. But yeah, move away from that and like get focused on you and being healthy and eating well and managing workloads to a point that's like sustainable. Because I mean, if you're in it to be an entrepreneur, you're probably not doing it to be in it for 2 years. You know, your chances are you're always going to be one.
It's a lifestyle choice, I think.
It's a lifestyle choice. You might as well make good decisions to have the best possible lifestyle. I think everyone is just like thinks that like entrepreneurship is so sexy, not just like cars. It's like the stories, right? Like everyone like hears like the Steve Jobs stories and like the, you know,
I started off in the garage and then it progressed into something else. Now I have a 20 car garage or
which
whatever.
Is great. Right? Like, you know, Steve Jobs didn't have any relationships with his kids, or like good ones anyway. Which is
really sad to be honest with you, because that's at the end of the day, that's really the people that you go back to, you know, to your home, really.
And you know, I think about being that person, and like you know, I'm married. Like I don't want my wife to hate me because I'm leaving the house at 7 a.m. and then coming home at 10, saying goodnight and doing it all over again. Like it's just not healthy to me. And you know, I think it's like finding that balance. It's like mindset and health and
Nice. Actually, it's very true with the mindset, because we had a guest on episode number 8, Charlene, and that's what she talked about is. If you guys want to, you know, learn about more about mindset hacks and you know how to achieve that, go back and rewatch episode 8 as well. Andrew, thank you so much for being on our show today. One last question that I kind of always try to ask most people that sometimes I forget, but is, you know, what sort of advice would you give yourself, you know, if you were, you know, for when you were 10 years younger?
And also, to piggyback off that question, what advice would you give to maybe like a newcomer, like a younger person wanting to get into the whole luxury brand kind of industry?
Okay, I'll probably answer the question with the same answer, because
I like the last answer. I think that was very inspirational. I agree.
Like I think for a youngster, man, there's so many answers to this question. That like I know everyone wants like a golden nugget. You know, everyone.
Well, you've given us quite a few already, so.
But I honestly think it's like it's mindset. Number one, I think get your mind right, know what your goals are, and reverse engineer those goals. Take care of yourself, because if you're not healthy, then
You're not gonna last.
you're not gonna last.
Yeah.
And like that goes from like going to the gym, stretching, meditating, and then, you know, 3, I would say, be patient, especially if you're like under 35 or even 40. Like, you know, I think about it right now. I'm gonna be 32, and like people retire at 65, which is probably gonna go up by the time we're all ready to retire. But like that's 33 years from now, or is that right? Yeah. That's 33 years from now. It's a long time to do shit, and I don't see what everyone's rush is to drive an AMG and get a bigger house. So
well, I don't see why people are rushing to retire in the first place, because I think that a lot of the times when you retire, you kind of lose that purpose, right?
Yeah.
And then once you lose that purpose, you just kind of start to kind of wilt and like kind of start to like die off so much quicker, right? Because you don't have that goal, you don't have that drive in your life left anymore. So
I agree. And then the last thing I would say is, find that uncomfortable path. That's one thing I started doing as like a New Year's resolution, is to find that uncomfortable path. And that's like everything. Like, for me, that would be public speaking. That would probably be the main big one. But like, if you're an introvert and you don't like public speaking, go take a public speaking course, or just go do something to like get you into that comfort zone. Like salespeople hate rejection. Like just do it. Get rejected because to be a good salesperson,
you gotta have a thick skin.
You gotta have thick skin. You're gonna be told no like 95% more than you're gonna be told yes. That would be my advice. Like just do things that make you uncomfortable or that you haven't done before, and grow that way. So. You asked for one thing, I gave you 4. I don't know. I don't know if that.
No, that was perfect. That's exactly what we were looking for. So
yeah,
I don't know. I mean, I think you've given us a lot of really interesting information. And I think that it can be definitely valuable for a lot of people that they can, that are going to be listening to our show.
Absolutely.
And even 15 years from now, I'm sure that a lot of it is going to be still relevant. Maybe some of it, maybe not so much, specifically maybe with e-commerce, because you said yourself it's evolving like crazy. So maybe there's going to be a lot of new developments. But who knows where it's gonna go, right? So I just want to say thank you so much for coming on our show. It's been a pleasure talking to you, and I think that you seem like a really genuine and really interesting person, and we'd love to actually we're thinking of organizing this party in maybe a year from now, where we can have all our guests back into this party, and we're kind of actually doing like a rooftop thing where we're gonna have a DJ and maybe some catered food and something like that. So we'd love to have you back together with us.
Cool.
Thank you so much again for being on the show, and hopefully you can use some of this material that you recorded yourself too. We'd love to send you the video, but wanted to thank you all the listeners, all the people that are viewing our show. Thank you guys for tuning in, and once again we're here with Andrew today. Andrew, just tell us all the links. How can they find the company? Just plug all your stuff.
Sure.
Plug away.
Our website, you can find Monte Coe at www.monteandco.com. That's monteandcoe.com, and you can find us on Instagram at Monte and Co as well. And stay tuned for the upcoming Kickstarter. We would love anyone's support on that.
And when is it launching? Do you have a date yet?
May 7th.
May 7th, okay. So very, very shortly, okay.
Yeah, so I'll give you guys a link.
This should be released, I think, right before it, so...
Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Yeah, I probably should have asked that before. But yeah, thanks to you guys for having me. Thanks to anyone who watches this, today, tomorrow, and 15 years from now. And, hopefully I can be a guest once you guys explode. And
hopefully we were able to inspire you, because you said yourself you want to do an offshoot of a kind of a similar idea. So I think all the power to you, and hopefully maybe we can bring some of your interesting guests on this podcast too in the future. So let's stay in touch, and thank you guys for watching. Thank you for listening.
Yeah.
And take care. Bye bye.
Thank you.
Cheers, guys. Thank you.